Okay, calling the June meeting of Open Space and Habitat Commission to order. Taking roll over there, Tracy?
Me?
Yeah, got it.
Yes, all commissioners are present except Ramiro, Commissioner Jimenez Ledesma, and our alternate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
So, do we have a motion to approve the agenda that was sent out?
I move to approve the agenda.
Yeah.
Go for it.
It's our last opportunity to
Yeah, thank you.
any discussion, any changes, anyone see on that?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Any announcements from Tracy or Josh on the city side?
I have a couple.
Go for it.
Okay.
Should I go first? Okay. One is that, on our, just to update you on the SALT grant applications that we did,
Oh, yeah.
the Beauchamps one was, which is the 79-acre one, that we submitted the grant application for. That one, was approved for the full submittal, so I'll be going to the city council, asking for a resolution of support that we have to submit with the full application, and just to make us more competitive, I'll also sort of try to get approval for the matching funds. And so the full submittal, or the full application is due on July 17th, so to do that pretty soon. So that one's moving forward. The Nishikawa one, the Solano Land Trust had submitted an application for that one, and they did kind of a restricted appraisal for that, and it came in pretty low, and so they don't want to do it. So that one is kind of on hold until prices improve, but
I got a quick question on that, if
Okay.
I'm allowed to.
yeah.
The county boundary goes right through the middle of the property, is that right?
I think the full easement is in Solano.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they also, that property is also on the north side of it.
I don't think so.
Mhm.
I
Maybe
think
that's another
I think the
one.
northern border is right in the middle of the creek, but I'm not 100% sure about that, but
For that, it may be several parcels that is Nishikawa, because I'm looking at their plans, it involved,
it's
Both sides.
multiple parcels.
yeah.
But, the easement, I don't know if the Solano County Water Agency's project could be on the north,
Yeah,
but the
right.
easement is on the south.
Got it.
Anyway, that one I won't be doing right now. And then also, the city council approved, I went to the city council about that Los Rios habitat easement that we talked about a couple months ago. The city council approved donating that habitat easement to the Yellow Habitat Conservancy, so
Okay.
I'll start working with them on that. They have to do some more due diligence. And anyway, I'll keep you updated as we move forward with them, but that one can move forward as well. And then I know I sent out an email, but I just wanted to remind everybody that just to hold Wednesday. I know some of you can't, I know Ramiro can't make Wednesday, July 16th, but just hold that for a meeing for the Village Farms to discuss the open space and habitat features for Village Farms. Do you have a question about that?
I'm not gonna be there, right?
You won't be there?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, the only date I could do that was the first.
that's right, you couldn't
Yeah.
be there. So that for sure, I know Ramiro's gone, Mark's gone, so,
I'll be traveling, yeah.
and Lindsay won't be here, so that means there's 5 remaining, so, if any of you think you can't come, tell me ASAP, because then I'll have to redo the meeting, because we have to have at least 4 for a quorum. Okay. And that's all I have.
Sure. Jeff, do you have something to?
Couple things. One, we're continuing to work through the budget process. We've had meetings the past 3 weeks straight. Another one tomorrow night. Kind of our last, not our last, but looking to approve the budget on the 17th of June. So we're in the middle of that. Thank you to everyone who attended the kickoff for the General Plan Commission meeting. Heard lots of great things about it, and appreciate anyone who took the time to be there. I have a family obligation at 7:30. I'll need to leave right around then, so I'll duck out quietly, but look forward to the conversation tonight.
On the general plan meeting, thank you, commission. We had the best representation of any commission there, so.
All right.
Shining stars there.
Let's keep it up.
Okay, any brief announcements, commissioners? Okay, let's go then to public comment for items not on the agenda. I think everyone's here for an item that is on the agenda. Okay, so let's move over to the consent calendar, which as usual is the commission minutes from last month. Have a motion to approve?
Yes, I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any changes, anything, clarifications on that? No. All in favor of passing the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, good. Sailing right along. Now we are going to turn it over to the group that's here to give us information, more information than we've had previously on the Wild Horse Golf Course easement and the ins and outs of that and potential development there. Tracy, do you have anything to add before we launch into this?
Just that, I didn't pull up my, I'll put that here. I just wanted to make sure, just on the cover memo that I wrote, that just, to just remind everybody that, you know, this is just an informational presentation, so we can't take an action. If the commission decides at a later time they want to take an action, you know, we can re-agendize it and, you know, then we would go through the process like we talked about. So again, yes, so I worked with Eileen and Marjorie, or they did this, but I also had some comments and I think we came to a good collaboration on it. So, and so just to remind everybody, you know, there isn't a development proposal right now, and you know, we're gonna just try to keep it to the historical record, and you know, we can have a Q&A afterwards. So that's it. So
Do you want to give maybe just an overview of what the structure of this is going to look like?
Yeah, sure. It is going to be going through documents that are available in the public record, so you can kind of judge for yourself. And I'm highlighting the pertinent phrases, sentences, and then off to the left side, I have sort of an overview of each, kind of what's being said on each of those documents. So it's you know, rather than going through a bunch of bullet points without support, without, you know, you being able to see this is what's in the public record, I'm actually showing the public record. And then my, you know, kind of overview on the left side of each slide.
Okay, so you're giving the presentation, then, okay.
Yeah, it's a PowerPoint presentation, and then I think it's like a half an hour presentation, but you know, I think it, as long as we move along, it's fine. I think it'd be fine to ask questions as I'm going.
Okay.
And yeah.
And let us know if there are questions that are getting bogged down and we're not getting through the presentation.
Yeah,
I'll kind of leave that to you to make the determination. But,
okay, yeah, I have an idea when I'm halfway through the presentation and what it's
great.
been.
All right.
And then, yeah. And I don't know if this works on that, so.
You can just say next and I'll.
No, it doesn't.
Oh,
That's fine, no,
no.
I'll just point to stuff. Okay, so, I wanna thank you, commissioners, for, this was in response to a request that, the wild horse wild horse conservation easement be put on as an agenda item, and then your motion, which, Tracy had on there, was to invite the public commenters to provide an educational presentation about their research about the wild horse easement and their concerns about development and particular amendments. So that's what we've done. And I also want to thank Tracy for working with us. And okay, so first, go back to the titles. Can we go to the title slide? So these are all pictures taken on Wild Horse Golf Course recently. The golf course has 5 lakes on it. So the top left and the bottom right are lakes. There's a lot of waterfowl in those lakes, a lot of water birds. The top right is Channel A. So Channel A, it's sort of the end of the line as far as the city of Davis goes for Channel A. So there's a lot of stormwater that runs through that channel. That's a sort of peak water capacity there. The lakes are actually hooked up to the channel, so there's extra capacity there. So the middle is a county. It's close to Channel A. Channel A is a wildlife corridor. Then we've got a lot of native trees like the California buckeye on the golf course. And then bottom left, it kind of shows you that when Channel A was built, Channel A was widened, which I'll show you, and when that happened, they took all the dirt and sort of made it into rolling hills. So I think it's the only place in Davis where there's actually rolling hills, right? Okay, so this is going to be the history of the Wild Horse Conservation Easement. And I was a professor at UC Davis, and I'm a Davis resident. And next slide. Okay, so, what's happened to the highline? That's all right. Well, I'll point out the things here. So, okay, so this is for the history of the project that came from a staff report from 1997, when the golf course was finally, the plan was finally approved for the golf course. And what this shows is that this whole project of the Wild Horse neighborhood began in 1990 when there was a notice of preparation. And then in 92, because the neighbors around that area wanted it to be a good project. So in 92, the city started working with the neighbors, basically. And Eileen Samitz was one of those neighbors that the city began working with, consulting with to make it a good project. And part of that, what came out of that project was the open space and the conservation easement. The environmental impact report was produced, the first one was produced in 1993, and this shows where the Wild Horse neighborhood is. So it's at the cross of Pole Line and Covell Road. You probably all have driven past there. And you can see Channel A running through that. So, and that's a really good feature, big feature of that.
You seem to have a laser.
The laser didn't work on
the
screens, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so next slide. Okay, so now the rest of the talk is, or the rest of the presentation is the conservation easement from 94 to 2025. Some parts, especially 1994, a lot of stuff happened. So there's going to be a lot of slides on 1994, then we're going to skip forward to recent history. This shows the area of where the Wild Horse project ended up. The pole line on the left and then Covell's on the bottom. And you can see in 94, it was fields, basically crops. And then above that, above the channel was, it was a walnut grove, English walnuts, not native California walnuts. And they've been replaced now with native walnuts. Well, they were replaced in, back when the golf course got built. And one of the things you can see is how narrow the channel was. It was just about 50 feet wide at most. And then on the right here, this shows this shows you can see the channel running through that on the top right. And the channel is as much as 200 feet wide, so it was widened as much as 4 times when the golf course got built. So the conservation easement is all of the green there, basically where the golf course is. And you can see the lakes too. The lakes, there's 5 lakes, one on the bottom, and then four of them on the top. And they're all connected up to the channel to give extra capacity for stormwater. Okay, next slide. Okay, so in 94, like I said, a lot happened in 94. The first documented occurrence of conservation easement, the word conservation easement related to the golf course, started in this document, which was a staff report, June 94. And the staff, based on discussions with neighbors, with staff, with other people in the city, there was a recommendation that in the zoning, which was going to be written that year, the zoning for the golf course, that there would be written a provision about this conservation easement, that it was going to happen, and that at that point, as Eileen can contest to, the developer had agreed to donate this conservation easement. And they wanted to make sure that it really got into the record, like this guy's gonna do it, so let's put it into something that'll be permanent. So they put it into the zoning, so that, what the recommendation was that the zoning regulations for the golf course should ensure that the course be conserved for open space. And then, so the recommendation was that a conservation easement shall be granted on the golf course with the city as beneficiary to ensure that it will remain as open space. Okay, next slide. And around that time, this is July 94, there were a lot of public hearings related to Wild Horse. Many I came across. And this is one of them, and where neighbors, talked about their concern. And this is something Eileen got up and talked about. And she requested, if the land wasn't developed for the golf course, that they requested, the neighbors requested that it not be developed for housing. Okay, so it turned out that ended up happening very shortly afterwards, that it was not developed for housing, and there was going to be a golf course on it. So in September, so a couple months later, the general plan was revised that there would be parks and recreation general plan amendment right there where the golf course is. Okay, so it's not not going to be developed. And then the next slide. So a little bit late. This is actually later. Yeah, later in '94. They were working on the development plan or the development agreement. And the development agreement has all sort of the good things, that are going to be in the neighborhoods, school sites, things like that, and parks and so forth. And so this is a staff report for a public hearing this is for the development agreement, zoning, and so forth. And so the staff report to that said that it was talking about the provisions that were agreed to be beneficial to the city. And right there, conservation easement on the golf course was seen as beneficial to the city. In addition, the speed at which the golf course was going to be built was seen as beneficial to the city. So substantial progress on the golf course prior to building permits. It was going to be built fast. And you'll see that did happen. It was built extremely fast, actually. Okay, so the conservation easement is seen as beneficial to the city that's on Wild Horse Golf Course. That's an important thing. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so then the zoning was approved in September 28, 1994. It's the same day that the the development agreement was approved. You'll see that in a minute. So the zoning required that there's that this Wild Horse Golf Course or Wild Horse Golf Club be a public golf course. So that's important. It's not a country club. People might not know that. It's a public golf course. Anybody can play on it. And that was required in the zoning, okay? And also, it's a full golf course. It's a full-size golf course. Unlike our municipal golf course, which is a smaller golf course. It's the kind of golf course that you can have college tournaments on. You can have high school tournaments on. Our municipal golf course is not good for that sort of thing. It's too small, it's too narrow. So as you can see here, it says it's required to be open to public play. Also, it's seen as an amenity and a benefit to the citizens of Davis, and so forth. It's going to have a managed landscape with naturalistic landscape and so forth, which I'll talk more about that. Okay, next slide. And the zoning provisions also included, as it said in an earlier slide, so the zoning, like if you look online now, you look up the zoning for the Wild Horse neighborhood, this is the document that still exists, okay? This is still the same document, not been changed. In this, the provisions was that the developer would grant a perpetual conservation easement on the golf course. Okay, so it's in the zoning. It also says that the golf course would be, the final plan for the golf course would be reviewed for consistency with the principles of the Audubon Society of New York State, which I think was the only one that was like certifying golf courses at that time. Now that could happen everywhere, but this was before that. So it's going to be reviewed for Audubon principles, okay, so that there will be habitat there. And also, another thing that was in there is that there would be habitat in Channel A. The Channel A would be more suitable for habitat than the narrow little, drainage channel that it was before. So it would be promoting habitat, including, edible landscapes and things like that, okay? So for animals, really. And naturalistic improvements of Channel A, which was the enlargement of Channel A that I showed you earlier. Next slide. Okay, so then this is the development agreement. So the development agreement was approved by City Council on the same day. And the development agreement includes the conservation easement. So it's Duffel, who was the developer at the time, who owned the land, shall record a conservation easement in favor of the city or nonprofit land trust. And also, it precludes development on the golf course. The conservation easement should preclude development on the golf course property for other urban uses and structures. Okay, so that was what what was in the development agreement. It's signed and everything by the city council. Okay. Any questions at this point? Okay. All right. Next slide, please. Okay. So in 1995, there was this came to a referendum. This was before Measure J. And this was because there was concerns that there was an accelerated rate of approval of building projects in Davis, and maybe to slow things down a little bit. And so this came to a city vote, and what was in the city vote was the development agreement. Okay. So in the measure, it reads shall. Shall the development agreement be adopted? Okay. So should the development agreement be adopted is in there, and that's what the whole city of Davis was voting on in 1995. I moved here in 1996, but everybody still knew all about this. Okay, so it was still very much in the news if you lived here in 96. Yeah. So. And so in 95, there was May of 95, there was the vote, and the development agreement won, the conservation easement won. 60%, approximately 60% of the citizens of Davis voted yes. And what was in the development agreement was the conservation easement, a lot of open space in the Wild Horse neighborhood because of the conservation easement and the ag buffer, parks, and so forth, the school site. So in the voting pamphlet, it said, this was right in basically the same document where you would be voting, where it sends you, this is from you know, Yolo County, this is not, what the Measure R people were saying. The attorney's, impartial assessment has that 164 acres will be developed as a golf course with a conservation easement recorded on it. And then also in there was that a conservation easement protects it as open space permanently. This was what was voted on, okay? And approved. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is from the pro Measure R group. Eileen, you can see Eileen here.
30 years ago, big I'm not against all development, so this is evidence, okay?
Yeah,
Everybody
that's right.
is accused of that all the time, you're against everything, no, like, for good planning. This was a good plan.
So this was the Measure R, and this statement here from Jerry Adler, who had been a planning commissioner and a David City Council person, says that it is without a doubt the best residential and open space project ever proposed in my 22 years of involvement. In addition, it says the agreement requires the largest contribution ever towards city's permanent open space plan, 3 to 4 times the percentage of open space required in recent Davis projects. So I think an important thing here is that it's a contribution. That it was donated. The ag buffer was donated by the developer. The conservation easement was donated by the developer. Okay, the city didn't buy those things. Okay, they were donated. So this was big. I mean, biggest thing, maybe still the biggest thing ever, as far as an outright donation of land and conservation easement. So, and then the neighbors, as it says here, the neighbors negotiated hard for these benefits, and they were successful with the development agreement that they got.
It was about 4 years of negotiations, so there's
Yeah,
a lot.
there's a lot of work, a lot of community input, a lot more than I've ever seen recently, anyways. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and as I said, the zoning and also the environmental impact report required that there would be an environmental review to see if the the golf course plan was consistent with Audubon principles for habitat and so forth. And so the city hired a consultant who's a PhD environmentalist to do this review. So this is environmental evaluation and a recommendation for the Wild Horse Golf Course. And this was the notes from the Audubon review. It was a pretty large document, and the end of the document though sort of summarized everything, so that's what I copied in. So for example, it asks, assure migrant birds have access to habitual areas and resources, and it says affirmative. And so the golf course project is going to increase the diversity of migrant species through open space with ponds, native vegetations, and the widening of the channel. And this is, the widening of channel comes up over and over again as a really big plus. It was a huge undertaking to widen that channel, and it's now a major wildlife corridor in Davis. So maintain corridors and green space for wildlife, affirmative. Use efficient irrigation methods and practices, affirmative. Also, if there's revegetation of Cobell Channel, native habitat sites, and so forth. Next slide. Also, so another, this was a 2-page summary. Maintain corridors for wildlife movement in and out of property. It especially points out there that it's going to, where is it here? It points out at the top there that the connection basically with the ag buffer. That, you've got this ag buffer all around the Wild Horse Golf Course. So you have the areas adjacent to the north and east bordering properties will retain and or increase wildlife movement across these boundaries. Designed to reduce tree loss. Again, talks about the Cobell Channel. One interesting thing is they removed all of the, as I sort of indicated earlier, they removed all of the non-native walnut trees, well, all but 3 or 4 of them. They removed those all and then put in a lot of the California black walnuts. So if you walk around the ag buffer there, you'll see a ton of those California black walnuts. They put in, I'm not a native tree person, so I made some notes here, so let me make sure I say the right things. They put in a lot of elderberry bushes. So there's a lot of elderberry bushes, a lot of native oaks, which are doing extremely well. So that's really great to see. And then a lot of the California buckeye, and then other things too. They even had little placards for a while where they had all the native
It
plants.
would be nice to get those back.
Yeah.
There's some pretty.
They had them on the
famous-
golf course. You're talking about the ag buffer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, they had them all over the golf, do you remember? They had them all over the golf course too, but eventually the trees, the plants are still there, but the little placards are gone, telling you what they were, what they are. And encourage wildlife habituation and biological diversity, yes, diversity of perennial habitat to local wildlife, and then improve irrigation and drainage system, and especially improving the local hydrological conditions. And that had to do with Covell Channel. So reconstruction of the Covell Channel will improve local hydrological conditions in the area. So, and it is the end of the line for the water. All the water north of I-80 ends up getting shunted up to Channel A, what they're calling Covell Channel, and then that ends up in Wild Horse. So it's important that the channel has a lot of capacity there. And that's what they built into that so that we don't have flooding, hopefully. Okay, next slide, please.
Well, it keeps going now.
What's that?
It keeps going east.
Yeah, it keeps going east. There are no more houses out there though.
No.
From that point,
Yeah,
that's the end of the
except to
houses.
bypass.
And then it
Yeah.
goes to Willow Slough bypass,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, goes up north. Okay, so now going forward to, well, I'm not sure when, I think the previous one might have been 97. So yeah, I was in 97. So then the city views the conservation easement as a property right to retain the open space if the golf course fails, okay? So this is in the notes about a comment that Jeff Lux, the planning director at that time, made. And this was the final public hearing on the golf course. So it was where the final plan development of the golf course was being approved. The final PD of the golf course was being approved. And he says that the conservation easement was placed on the golf course in the unlikely event that the golf course would fail, that the city could look at this as a property right and open space, okay? And what is the property right of a conservation easement? The property right of a conservation easement is the owner of the conservation easement, which is the city, owns the development rights, basically. It can prevent development from happening, okay? So that's what he says. That's why there was a conservation easement put on there, because the city could have the development rights to prevent development on that. Okay, so in 1998, the Wild Horse Conservation Easement was established. This is from the deed of conservation easement. And the polka dots show where the conservation easement is. It's 164 acres. Okay, next slide. So this is from the deed of conservation easement from 1998. And it says here, so it's March 1998, it says that the city of Davis, which is grantee, for the purpose of forever conserving the open space character of the subject property. It also says that the grantor intends to donate a conservation easement to the grantee, the city, for the exclusive purpose of assuring that the open space character of the easement area will be conserved and maintained forever. And also, it says that the parties acknowledge that the approved proposed use as a public golf course and driving range, including the structures associated with that, are consistent with the conservation purposes of the easement. Another thing, when the development proposal, which was put in 2024, went in, the city posted the deed of conservation easement on the development proposals website, on the major projects website. And the city decided to box in this statement. So the city felt that this was important, that current city planners felt it was important to box in that statement. And that statement is that the conservation purposes of this easement are recognized by the governmental conservation policies set forth in the development agreement. Okay, so that conservation easement was there, the conservation easement completes the development agreement. The development agreement had that there would be a conservation easement there, and they did that. Okay, so they wanted to, you know, the city felt it was important to box that in. Okay, that this was part of the development agreement. Okay, next slide.
Quick question.
Uh-huh.
What do you mean by box in?
They put the red box around it.
They put the red box in?
Yeah.
I totally assumed you did.
No, they did. No, I sent them the deed. Actually, Karen went and got the deed from the Yola recorders. She gave it to me, and then I gave it to the planners, because they didn't have a copy of it. And then they boxed that in. They put the red box around that when they posted the deed. Yeah. So it meets having a conservation easement meets the conservation policies that were in the development agreement. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now 1998 to 2017. Okay, so we're jumping fast in time now. Okay, so one of the important things I want to point out here is some people think that there are like 100 different owners of the golf course. There have not been 100 different owners of the golf course. There have been 4 owners of the golf course. Okay, so for 2000, 2004, 2011, and 2017 is the current owner. That's their LLC. 98, the deed of conservation easement was signed. 98, Channel A was widened after the Department of Fish and Game agreement. They gave them the green light to do that. 98, the construction began of the Wild Horse neighborhood. And then the Wild Horse neighborhood was completed in 2003, except for the condominiums. So that's incredibly fast, I think, to build a whole neighborhood. So you can see this is around that time. This is the neighborhood. You can see all the houses are in there, and there's just a couple empty lots. Actually, it's the condominiums and some apartments, and the rest of the neighborhood is built in, you know, in about 5 years. The golf course construction began in 98, and it was finished in 99. So they built it in about a year and a half, which is amazing with the amount of dirt that they moved. It's incredible that they were able to do that. They completed it. This is about the only thing that's not in the public record, is that one of the previous owners of the golf course gave me that number. I actually gave it to Karen, and she gave it to me. So one of the early owners of the golf course said that they built it, which seems reasonable, for $13 to $15 million. The developer of the neighborhood built that for $13 to $15 million. And that would be $25 to $29 million today to build that golf course. Okay, so it's a big asset to the city. And a lot of this went into habitat. A lot of this went into widening of Channel A and building all the habitat, all the native stuff that's out there in the wildlife. Okay. And then it's had 4 owners, and the most recent owner, Wild Horse Golf Club LLC, bought the golf course in 2017. Next slide.
I've got one quick question before you go on, and that's just to get clarification on what the boundary of the easement actually is. So obviously the top northern third is the golf course, but then there's the kind of the green part that comes down to the south. Is that included in it?
Yeah, that's also an easement.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you look up the easement, on the easement, there's a database of conservation easements. I don't know if you've ever been on it.
Yeah,
It splits it up. It's not really 2 pieces, but it splits it up into 2 pieces in that database. The one part below Rockwell Drive and the part above Rockwell Drive.
Okay.
But it's all together one. It was all 164 acres. But
Holes 1 and 2 are to the south,
yeah.
and then the other 16 holes are to the
And one
north.
of the lights.
Got it.
Yeah.
And the golf carts drive right across.
That's great.
I've never played around the golf up there.
No, they walk right across.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, next slide.
She's gonna.
Oh, she got the next slide. Okay, so when the golf course was bought in 2017, there was a title report, as there always would be if you could buy something. The title report was part of the development proposal for in the 2024 development proposal. So it was part of the city's record, and this was obtained from a public records request because it was part of the development proposal. And it shows this shows that when the golf course was bought, it was in the title report, not a long title report, that it was known, should be known, that the terms and provision contained in the deed of conservation easement. So it's in the title report, the person buying it should read their title report, should know that there's a conservation easement on this property. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so 1 year later, approximately it's been 20 months later, but the next year, there's a proposal from the owner of the golf course to build condominiums on the conservation easement on the golf course along Pole Line Road. And these condominiums would be on 6 acres of the conservation easement, and it would be 40 to 60 condominium units. And they requested an amendment. So they request an amendment of the conservation easement and amendment of aforementioned conservation easement to be able to build on that golf course there. Okay. Excellent. So the city planner responded to that the amendment to the conservation easement may present challenges to development. So it says, the city planner, that was Kathy Camacho, this is from the letter to the applicants. And she says that, as you know, the property in question is covered by a conservation easement that preserves the property as open space. And she also wrote that the primary issue for the project is that it would require amendment of a conservation easement, which we believe at this time may present challenges to the potential development of property. Okay, so they were notified. And another important thing that I wanted to put here is that this was a pre-proposal. It wasn't a proposal. The more recent one is an actual proposal. This was a pre-proposal. And so what they wrote, what the city responded back is that if you want to put a formal application in, there would be public meetings, and one of the public meetings would be the Open Space and Habitat Commission, which is here, which is why we're here. And this commission will be weighing in on the conservation easement amendment. Okay, so that's, important.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was. So then, based somewhat on this, the proposal was withdrawn. And next slide. And then the second proposal project was bigger, is in 2024. The first one was in 2018, this one is in 2024. It's 75 acres of the conservation easement, 750 homes. It's called North Cobell Creek. They're referring to Channel A, I think, when they call it North Cobell Creek. And it's 75 acres of the golf course, 750 homes, retaining the 90 acres south of the channel, and it would convert that into a small golf course, a small 9-hole golf course, not the big, beautiful golf course that we have out there now. Okay, next. So the proposed 75-acre, they requested a conservation easement amendment. So they asked amend number 1 there, amend the conservation easement to remove the project site. So that's what they're requesting. And they also request a general plan amendment from Park. So it's the general plan designation of the land is Park. And they want it to be redesignated as residential. So they're asking for those 2 things. So here's the current conservation easement in polka dots, and in green there would be the remaining conservation easement. So taking a big bite out of the current conservation easement. And next slide, please. Okay, so the proposed amendment to remove 75 acres from the conservation easement, they propose that in exchange for protection of other property or cash to protect other property. So what it says here, more specifically, the applicant will either, one, identify an alternative property that the city deems to be equivalent or better and place it under a conservation easement, or two, will pay into the city's open space fund so that the city, well, anyways, they're gonna pay into it, okay? And then, so I wanna stop here for a second, because I wanna hand something out. And if you can hand these down. This is a handout that we made that, about what we believe is the difference, what we believe is some clarification on, I should say, on amendments and extinguishments of conservation easements. Okay, so I want to particularly focus on the middle of this handout, which is the Internal Revenue Service definition of extinguishment of a conservation easement. So remember what it says here. They propose to remove 75 acres from the conservation easement in exchange for protection of other property or cash to protect other property. So if we read here, the second sentence of that, an easement is also released, extinguished, or terminated when all or part of the property subject to the easement is removed from the protection of the easement in exchange for the protection of some other property or cash to be used to protect other property. So that's one of the things is we believe that they were proposing what would be more technically called an extinguishment or a partial extinguishment of the easement. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the city received a lot of emails of concern about the North Cobell Creek proposal. Of these about 45 emails here, all but about 4 of them are opposition emails. Okay, this was a public records request to get these emails. So you can go online and you can look at what all it says in these emails and my email too. So you can read what it says in those. Okay, next slide. So 2 months after the applicants put in the proposal for amendment of the conservation easement and this development proposal, they withdrew the proposal. However, the withdrawal letter states that we continue to believe that this is a logical and appropriate location. Okay? So if they hadn't said that, we probably wouldn't be here. Okay? That, you know, for us, this is a big red flag. Okay, so they said that. They also said that it's as a result of neighborhood meetings that they withdrew the proposal. There were 2 neighborhood meetings. The first one was June 27th. There were about 30 attendants, but 2 things. It was the night of the Biden-Trump debate. And also it was, their letter hadn't gotten around to everybody. So the neighborhood hadn't actually gotten their invitation letter. The second meeting was July 1st. There were about 100 attendees. And we'd all gotten their letter. There was no debate. I think we all were there at that meeting. Anyways, they got the message and they withdrew their proposal. But they still say that they continue to believe that this is a logical or appropriate location. Okay, this is in the public record. You can get this through a public records request. Next slide. Okay, so more recently, in 2025, this story has been picked up by the California Association for Golf, or sorry, the California Alliance for Golf. The California Alliance for Golf it includes a lot of constituents, and it's a policy group So it's a recreational policy group for the game of golf. For example, they represent the nationally prominent amateur golf associations in California, and they have about 400,000 members. I'm a member, Karen's a member, Mike's a member back there. If you play a lot of golf, you're a member of this association. And they posted this 3-page article on about half the members on the website for about half of that association and for their entire association. So they reached potentially, potentially a million people with this article about this, what happened here at Wild Horse, or what could potentially happen here. So this was written by their executive director, and they said, basically, with this Davis controversy, we may discover whether the confidence many have placed in the role of conservation easements, is founded in preserving open recreational spaces continues to be American, is what they said. So, this got some publicity, what happened here, or what could potentially happen here. And next slide. So, and are there any questions before I go into the summary?
I do have a question about what you hinted out and what you were covering about the items. Your star there says easement is reduced in size or entirely eliminated in an extinguishment. So you're saying if an extinguishment is granted, the whole thing is tossed?
It can be, or partially. So it says either in part or in all, in total, is called an extinguishment, But there were partial extinguishments and full extinguishments.
Right.
So we believe what they were requesting was a partial extinguishment.
Okay.
So, 75 acres out of the 164 acres.
Thanks.
So, and I'll talk for just a minute after this on this, particularly the third part there. So, in summary, in 1998, the city committed to the conservation easement on the Wild Horse Golf Course to conserve open space, and after years of planning, including citizens' input, a lot of citizens' input, and a citizens' vote, the Wild Horse Golf Course was built to Audubon standards for habitat. It still has a lot of the native trees, it has a lot of wildlife, as people are out there can contest. It's a totally public golf course. Wild Horse Golf Course has been operating continuously for 26 years. In 2017, the current owner bought Wild Horse Golf Course with a conservation easement in place. And in 2018, the owner proposed a condominium project with 6 acres and 60 housing units. The city responded that the project would be challenging because of the conservation easement, and the project was withdrawn. In 2024, the owner proposed a larger development project, 75 acres and 750 housing units. The community expressed opposition to the project through emails and at community meetings. The project was withdrawn. There's still community concerns, and there were community concerns over these development proposals. There's a big concern that another development project will be proposed on the golf course based on the language in the last withdrawal letter to the city from the owner, and also just things that we've heard. Part of the golf course could be completely removed from the conservation easement and converted into housing. We're very concerned that that might happen. And this could negatively impact other conservation easements. For example, that California Alliance for Golf, where there's at least 6 other, just even golf courses that are protected from conservation easements, and that's without even trying to actually, I'm sure there's a lot more of them, 6 more in California. I'm sure there's a lot more. That was just a very easy search on the, on the conservation easement database, and just put in the word golf, and it just came up with 6 immediately. But you'd have to actually look at every single conservation easement and see if there's a golf course, on each one and all of that sort of thing. But I'm sure there's more than 6, and they're used to, protect recreation, open space, all sorts of things. So there's, what confidence can we have in those things? And then just quickly on this handout, this is for informational purposes, and you can look up and if you want hard copies of these, or not hard copies, if you want if you want an electronic copy, I mean, I can send that to you.
Yeah, please send all the materials to Tracy.
Yeah, she has all the slides, but she doesn't have this, but
Yes, right.
I'll send the electronic, but we did talk about this. So this, so the first part there is from the California Land Conservation Assistance Network, and it's what they talk about. There's an article about that includes about amendments of conservation easements. And basically, what we're starring here is that what it seems that they're saying is that easement should be as unchanged as possible with an amendment. Okay. And then the Internal Revenue Service has a definition for extinguishment of conservation easement, because, you know, these are donations, so that's, the IRS is very interested in donations, obviously, because people deduct them on their taxes. So we already kind of went around that, but, and then easements is reduced in size or entirely eliminated in an extinguishment. Could be a partial extinguishment or a full extinguishment. Then the Code of Federal Regulations, this is from the website for itemized deductions of qualified contributions, in other words, donations of perpetual conservation restrictions, which this was a donation of a perpetual conservation restriction. And includes, you know, especially donated conservation easements. And basically it says here that, you know, extinguishments take place when it's, you know, impossible or impractical for the continued use of the property for the conservation purposes. And so extinguishments are very rare and only should occur in extreme situations. And also the conservation purposes can still be protected by judicial proceeding. So by going in front of a judge. So extinguishments must go before a judge for a determination if it were as a donated conservation restriction. So that's what we came up with. I know everybody might have their own opinion, but that's our opinion on this. So I hope that was helpful to learn something about wild horse.
Great, so that's the end of the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions, or, and these audience can also.
Oh, wait, should we do the public comment first, or
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we probably should.
before we get into the,
All right.
Yeah.
unless there's a clarifying question?
I don't know if it's clear.
So let's hold off. So, yeah, we can go ahead and do public comment then. Are there people are
I guess the only thing I would want to say is, you know, as I mentioned earlier, this was a, 4-year process and a lot went into it, but,
Do you want to just introduce yourself?
oh, I'm sorry, my name is Simmons, I thought, sorry, Ellen Simmons. I was one of the negotiators, for this years ago. And so, a lot went into it and it was such a good project and the city got so much out of it, including the conservation easement. But what's important about this too is, of course, as we said before, the consequences of this conservation easement being overturned potentially, is going to be consequential to your other conservation easements. I mean, Davis does not want to be the city that overturned a conservation easement just because the owner wanted that to happen. It's unnecessary, especially because the golf course is doing well financially, is what we've found out through the grapevine, one way or the other. But the point is, he has had other options of people asking about potentially selling it, and he has rebuffed any of those offers or discussions. So, anyone trying to make the argument that, oh, poor guy is not doing well enough financially and all that, that's bunk, because there are interested parties, and he is not even discussing the returning calls and stuff. So, because we've made sure that happens, is like to look for getting the word out, and there are definitely interested parties. So anyway, but we're counting on you guys. This is your thing, and so it's just like this is our chance to kind of really protect, conservation easement, which deserves to be protected. So, thank you for your time. If you have any questions?
Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Brad Sutton, I live in the Wild Horse subdivision. The Davis General Plan standards quote, feasible alternatives shall be considered prior to converting parkland to other uses, unquote. Once it's converted from parkland and it's developed, it can never go back the other way. The instances where sometimes parkland is converted or open space is converted is for freeways, levees, and dams. So if you have a freeway that has to go through, the alignment has to be there, or you're putting a levee there or a dam there, then yes, sometimes you have to take out parks. But in this case, when the original subdivision went in, this was the mitigation for development of all those other areas. When we have heavy rainstorms now, sometimes there's surface street flooding under the current conditions, but we do have a great large area for the rainwater to percolate into the ground. If we take and pave over and have additional roofs and patios and such, that water runoff has to go somewhere. And with climate change and increased greenhouse gas emissions, we're getting these crazy storms where you get a lot of rain in a short period of time, and so we need that open space. So not only is it the habitat for the animals, but it's actually for the people, for flooding, for recreation, etc. So thank you for your time tonight.
Great, thank you.
Can you just say your name one more time? I didn't catch it.
Brad, name?
Yes, please.
Brad Sutton, S-U-T-T-O-N.
Thank you.
Everybody else, if you want to do a comment, go ahead, I was just gonna mention that we've all commented before at other meetings, so, but go ahead.
Sharon Montooth is my name, and it's a brief comment. I'm concerned about the conservation aspect, but also just, people voted a certain way, and to not have your vote respected, I think opens a slippery slope of what people might be talking about down the road with any vote in the city of Davis. So that's what the people voted on, and it needs to be respected.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? We're gonna let the presentation stand. Okay. Good. So we'll close public comment now and open up to commissioners for thoughts, questions, etc.
Okay, I have a major concern.
Okay.
What is the probability that if this were extinguished, the city would be sued for breach of contract, given the vote, and the promises made to the people who live there that that was open space, that they would be enjoying? I'm worried this could be a major problem for the city. I don't know who would do it, but it's looming there. I don't know if there's an answer to that. I'm just throwing it out there as a concern.
Okay. Other thoughts? Yeah.
I just want to thank you for the presentation. And sharing a lot of insight, and obviously a lot of work has gone into it, and history having been around here, so thank you for being here.
She has done so much.
My highlighting wasn't showing up here, so I apologize.
It was great. I followed it very well.
It's always the way it goes, right?
Yeah,
Talks,
so
but I
thank
was
you.
having to where did I highlight?
Yeah.
It showed up in the packet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we have
Good,
that.
okay. And I want to thank all of you too for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you.
I think you did a good job at the presentation, and you tried to look up all the documents and of the different stages. So I thought it was very informative, and so at this point in time, we'll see what happens, but we understand what's at stake there.
Question. Has there been direct communication with the current owner by any of you all?
Yeah.
And what their stance, or has there been this communication of the concerns? And what is their response to that, other than we're withdrawing the project, but we still think it's a good idea, but we're not gonna do it now?
In my opinion, just my opinion, the meeting where there were 100 of us, he seemed either surprised that that there was an easement. At one point said something about, I didn't read the contract or something, I don't know if that's true. Either surprised or surprised that so many people showed up to express concerns. And after they did their presentation, they were kind of quiet. People had a lot of good questions, and I felt like they didn't really know how to answer some of them. I think they were disappointed, but, you know, that's just my perception of it. And when people did, you know, they were saying that it's not, the golf course is not profitable anymore, or as profitable. People rallied, gave them ideas, referred them to buyers, and, they're not interested. So the communication's kind of lacking, I guess.
I think he's determined to just pursue this no matter what, until the city tells him that he can't do this because of the conservation easement. That's my impression, is that, until he's told differently, he's gonna keep on coming back with applications and see if he can kind of push this through, see if he can bully his way through. I'm sorry, but that's just the bottom line. The fact that he's not even trying to interview any of the potential buyers and stuff, that says a lot. And so he's just gonna see if he can get away with this.
As far as no knowledge of the conservation easement, it's a recorded document.
Right.
And it was also an exception listed in the ALTA policy for his owner's policy when he purchased the property.
Yeah.
So
he either didn't read
there's
it.
public notice by
Yeah.
the fact that it was recorded.
Yeah.
He claims he didn't know, but obviously all the documentation, and if he did buy it without reading it,
That's on him.
And then Karen and
It
I.
doesn't seem particularly relevant whether you
Yeah.
know about it or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Karen and I engaged, I was gonna ask her, we to talk about this, but we engaged with the owner after the project was pulled, actually on his request, but it was pretty fruitless. Yeah, I mean, we helped to track down people interested in buying the golf course. There's still people interested in buying the golf course, but then he didn't really want to talk to us. So, yeah, so it's been awkward.
You have shown disrespectful behavior around our business. That's the response we got when we were asked by him to forward anybody who was interested in purchasing the property. And unfortunately, that time has passed. We asked if we could meet with him to discuss any of this, and no, was the answer.
All right.
Good, well, yeah, I appreciate you presenting us with this. I don't see that there is an immediate role until another proposal comes forward, if it does. But we will be better informed, certainly, than we would have been if and when that happens. So this has been very helpful for the commission, so thank you.
Thank you.
thank you very much, thanks for the time.
Yep.
You can hang out if you want.
Bob's side now.
I see there's chocolate on the table. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have some chocolate. Thanks again. Have some chocolate.
Did you bring those?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my arm. Is this to celebrate?
Well, so Carrie,
Bitter celebration.
like got chocolate on her last day of
Oh.
anniversary. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to bring chocolate. So I wanted to have some tradition, so I made up.
Let's say it is. Well,
Let's share them.
I don't even need to look at the other ones. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this in.
Yeah.
I feel like it should have been the other way around, but
I know. Yeah.
Carrie established a tradition, so here we are.
I don't know. Hey, I'm gonna have to, when I'm done, establish the tradition of bringing champagne.
There you go. Yeah, open them up.
And chocolate.
Yeah, just keep adding to what you bring.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Well, the
Just
people
kind of
won't know how you showed them up, so it's all good.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, I like that one.
Appropriately moving on to item B. Lindsay, thank you for being on the commission with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. educational journey. Actually, the wild horse item was, like, when I first moved to Davis, I used to count the owls, the burrowing owls on my run along the bumper trail. And then today I got a lunchtime run and got to see the goats out there grazing. So that was really, and then the presentation tonight. So certainly a connection to the place, and certainly learned a lot from all of you and Tracy, all the work that you pour into running the program. I think Chris was out there, like, taking some photos of the goats, and I was like, that's good. So, yeah, grateful for the opportunity to participate in the commission, and for all of you for enduring my questions, and budget questions, wild ideas about students and medallions and stuff. So thanks for having me on the journey, and so sure you'll all do good things.
I do want to say that I appreciate the lenses that you brought, the equity, the access, the process lenses that you brought. I think were very helpful for all of us, and we're kind of a unique role. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
And then also the input from showing to your kids for our informational panel. So that was.
That too, and so when those signs are up at the North Davis,
Yes.
I'll take them back out there.
Yeah,
Near the bunker.
they're getting designed right now.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, so thank you. Yeah, the little one was like 2 when I started, so I'm in a time poor era of life. So, stepping away from this and hoping to regain some time and serve in other ways, so thank you. Yay.
Well, I have a little certificate of appreciation too, but the things I noted, I won't read the whole thing, but I said, the thing, I kind of, I'm echoing what Patrick said too, because, I think you did provide valuable input on issues related to community engagement and outreach, for sure. Citizen science efforts that we haven't, Chris and I are still trying to figure out how to wrap our hands around that. Community partnerships, public access and recreation, performance standards, and the statewide environmental initiatives that you would bring to my attention, and community-driven monitoring. Those were kind of the things that came to my mind too about, but particularly the engagement. I think you really brought a really great perspective on that topic, and didn't have that before, so really, really appreciate it. And I always say this too when people come on, but it's true, it's a time commitment, and really appreciate, you're giving, it's a volunteer job. It's not always, it's not just once a month you have to read the packets, you have to come, and you can't just sit and do nothing, right? You have to participate, so you have to read the packet and brush up, so it's work. So, believe me, that doesn't go unnoticed, and really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm like, the monitoring app still. I was actually thinking that when I saw the goats out there.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would love to engage. Thank you.
You can frame it and.
Yeah, I will. Well, in the office.
You don't even have to frame it.
I got nothing on the walls in my house, so that's
Yeah, we were out there, I guess I didn't really mention, I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
We were out there at the Wild Horse Aquifer, because I should have said this during announcements, but I'll do it later. It's not imminent, but we were gonna have to close like the whole eastern leg of the buffer in the fall because the Palomino Place project, the sewer line goes all the way up through the aquifer.
Through the aquifer?
Yeah. So yeah, the goats are out there now, and they'll be out of there. They'll be out of there in a couple days.
A couple days? Okay. Well, I want to take my kids to go see them.
Well, they're moving around. I forget where they're going next. They're on a tour. They're on a tour of Davis, and so they're going on a bunch of different. Chris has them going to not just open space areas, but public works, like we did that last year
Okay.
too, like, Stonegate detention basins.
Yeah.
Some of the detention basins that aren't full of water, they're gonna go and, cause it really worked out last year too for them to do that, so.
Are we
yeah,
able
anyway.
to know what the tour stops are? Should I make a tour flyer?
Yeah, I know, to make t-shirts.
Yeah.
Well, they, UC Davis, when they did the sheep grazing experiments, they had all these posters.
Yeah, it's a big
coming out of
market.
preschoolers at the time, so it was really.
Yeah, I love the sheep grazing days.
I thought that,
They put big deals
the,
on
our communicate, I thought they did send out something on social media, but I'll try to find out, cause I know we did do
It's
that.
a little hot out there though.
Yeah, fair.
Make
Yeah.
it look a little hot.
So is the city contracting with someone who
Yeah.
brings these goats and
Yeah, Chris does, he found this grazer.
where are they from, do you know? Anything they do? From like the area,
Where is he from?
Vacaville?
No, for some reason I wanna say Galt, but I could be
Oh.
wrong.
Sure.
But, yeah, he's, has a habitat element to the way he grazes his animals, like in terms of how he grazes them and the timing, and so Chris found him somehow, I don't remember how he found him.
That's great.
And so, he actually, they stay overnight, so that he has a little unit that he stays in.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
Stays,
Wow.
yeah. And, the only complaints I've gotten is like sometimes the sheep dogs bark at night.
Wow,
Gotta keep the coyotes away.
Yeah, coyotes, keeping the coyotes away,
yeah,
so,
yeah. It become a business to do this, but it's a concern because, you bring animals in places they're not familiar with. So you have to make sure that you just cannot bring them and say,
Yeah.
they do a really good job.
yeah,
I bet.
yeah.
They do a really good job.
If it's possible to see them, I'd love to go visit.
Yeah, I mean, they cleared out, everything in South Fork. I mean, it was great. And they're good because they don't eat, I don't know how he does it, but they don't eat, there's a particular, or maybe it's the goats, I can't remember, like what, Chris doesn't want the goats at South Fork, he only does sheep at Gun, because they'll eat, up a tree and things like that, and he doesn't want them doing that.
Yeah.
But the stuff that's on the ground, they just, it's amazing, just really eat everything.
Well, we were on the eastern edge today, before the little bridge,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
but excited to have new knowledge.
Well, we'll miss you, we will definitely miss you, and, thanks for hanging in there for another 6 months. So.
Okay, well, back to more prosaic things, I guess. Liaison assignments. So on Lower Prudhoe Creek Coordinating Committee the past month and continuing on for, I think, this meeting coming up and maybe the next one, there's a real focus on homeless issues along Prudhoe Creek, which are fairly substantial and I think increasing. And so just hearing from researchers that are working with populations and just trying to figure out what the issues actually are and what some potential solutions might be. We haven't gotten to the solution part yet, but obviously we're just getting kind of schooled in the complexity of the situation, which obviously is a complex situation, but not seeing any easy wins out there. We'll see as we go along whether some ideas come out. We're just at the beginning of this process now, really starting to grapple with it.
And the main fear for fire and
there's some
garbage.
fire fear, but it's also just impacts to vegetation, trash, just big encampments that end up kind of sprawling. And I think my impression is it's worse up by Winters than down this direction. I haven't seen a ton of it down along the creek.
the South Fork, right?
I have.
Have you?
Along the South Fork?
I was paddleboarding from like the Raptor Center, and I went downstream, and about a mile down, big encampment. Really, we're so isolated, we were very concerned of our safety. Because, you know, you're out in the middle of nowhere there, and it was a big encampment.
Where was that?
This was on Poudre Creek, South Fork, about a mile downstream, maybe 2 miles, maybe between 1 and 2 miles downstream of the Raptor Center.
Oh.
And pretty sure that's private land. And, or at the edge of the university world, I'm not sure. But, boy, it just kind of ruined our trip, because we wanted to go further, but it was like, encounter these people or not encounter these people? You know, it's a small area that can get to you quickly. You know, it was just very unsettling. So I would add safety to that concern list. And it just kind of reminded me of those weird Vietnam War movies where they're going down the river and then there's all of a sudden there's like, villages. Like, you should be concerned, like, they could shoot at you. But that, you know, it just, I'm sure they were fine. It was just a very uncertain environment. And,
The San Francisco Estuary Partnership, if you're familiar with them at all, they oversee the estuary program, which is the conservation management plan for the San Francisco Estuary, but they have a whole section in their State of the Estuary Conference that's dealt with like trash, like urban, like this encampment issue, trash and actions around that for their, and I remember at one of the State of the Estuary conferences, there was a whole center on some of these like cleanup issues. So anyway, a potential resource as you dig into understanding the issues and different groups that have wrestled with that in terms of these like urban ag, environmental, like conservation oriented creeks. So there's been a lot of work in the Bay, as you can imagine, on those issues.
And actually, the researchers that came to us were doing most of their work, like Contra Costa County and areas like that. So that's where they're kind of bringing, so they probably were very familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah, there are a lot of groups that deal with and support those like cleanups as well, and the encampment issues, and I think they've done some research around it as well, so potential resources.
Okay.
What year was that conference? About
that specific
2
one?
years, 3 or 5 years ago?
Oh gosh, that was like the last time I went in person, so it was like 5 years ago, or 6, 7 years ago, but it's if you want, you can reach out to them, and they have an action on trash for within their estuary.
So, some of the interesting things for me were that even just building housing isn't going to necessarily be a solution, at least, shelters or that kind of thing. There's a preference to avoid those, to stay at their encampments with kind of their camp families. And even, we think about this for, kind of house people, and for whatever reason, I didn't think of it much with unhoused, but, there's, benefits to being out in nature, and that's still being experienced on that level. So, there's really a desire for people to be staying in these encampments rather than some of these other options that we think might be preferable, that we use money to supply, but they're still not something that people want to actually live in. So that's makes it even more complicated, that it's not just necessarily throwing some money at it.
There's all kinds of issues there.
Is that something that Chris monitors at all, or like reports on if he sees encampments, open spaces?
So he has to deal with that on a regular basis,
we don't have that many on the creek. We have more like on the Poudre Creek Parkway, we have a lot. Old Lincoln Highway, we have a lot. which is kind of it's like, that's a weird, it's not really, I know you don't think of it really as an open space, but we take care of that part, that's the hedgerow kind of vegetated part of the bike path. And even Wild Horse Ag Buffer, actually, we get some, especially like on the very northern, western corner of the Ag Buffer, we'll get a camp up there a lot. So, yeah, so he has to call code enforcement. That's what we generally do because, you know, you need like special gear and training to clean up one of these encampments. So we kind of let the PD do it.
Well,
We have to call code enforcement.
if you're not aware, I think you probably are, but this place is a magnet. This complex is a magnet for.
City Hall?
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah, well, I know, we do have people out here on the picnic
There's a
grounds.
family that just comes here over and over and over again. Today I was walking through here and there are fentanyl testing packages all over the entire area here. So you gotta know something else is going on too.
Oh, sure, yeah,
it's
no,
kinda
that happens too.
concerning.
I mean, we have, you know, there's a whole group in PD that does general outreach and tries to do referrals, same thing, like, you know, it's not always just, oh, here's, you know, referring to services, it just, it doesn't, yeah, there's mental health issues, there's issues of
Addiction
just,
issues.
yeah, and also, yeah, it's more of a sometimes it is just a lifestyle choice, you know, so it's difficult to change it.
Patrick, another really good resource would be American River Parkway people. They've been dealing with this for a really, really long time and very high density of them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I worked a little bit with them briefly. They're pretty good, so you might want to ask them for some advice.
Didn't the city recently pass an ordinance of not allowing people to camp on sidewalks anymore in public property? So I'm just curious, I just remember seeing it, I was like, well, I'm sure that's a huge issue, but I'm just curious if it'd be interesting to see if the pressure increases on
the
I
outside.
think it will, because actually there was, I'm not totally up on it, but I know there was a recent state law, in fact, that it made it easier to move encampments off of public property, easier than it was before, in terms of like the time frames involved. I mean, there was noticing requirements and all of that. I don't know exactly the details, I just know that there was some, and we might have passed some ordinance to sort of comply with that state directive. But yeah, it's a big problem. It is a big problem. I mean, on a lot of different levels for the people that are involved directly, but then it impacts everybody else that lives in the community as well. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, a lot of this came up because it's directly impacting investments that we're making along the creek, that those end up being places where people move in, where you know, we're trying to do restoration projects and, you know, dumping millions of dollars in, but then, you know, having damage occur to those investments.
Yeah.
Like at the, you know, Winters Kuta Creek Park, for example, where we've done the big restoration, there's, you know, a lot of pressure there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll keep everyone posted as things go along with that. Nothing on Yellow Habitat Conservancy, and so long-range calendar. We've got theoretically Covell Farms.
Yeah, theoretically, like I already mentioned.
Next
Yeah, so I will, as soon as I hear anything else.
A question about the Covell, what was it called again?
Village Farms.
Or Village Farms, sorry, yeah.
Village Farms, has that been withdrawn?
Village Farms? No.
Yeah. No. Oh, okay.
No, so that's
It's
what,
been-
July, so the meeting in July.
It's been delayed.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because we were gonna review something, we got all the documents right, and then I was never sure what happened, so.
Right, yeah.
It wasn't ready.
Wasn't ready.
There's a little too much chaos.
People
Little-
decided to do some modifications or,
Yes.
okay. That's all you can say.
So whatever was given, I think this was for the April meeting.
April.
Yeah,
That, all of that
it's obsolete.
is,
It's gone.
don't leave it,
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
bother
It's,
looking at
it's
it.
new, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, shred it.
Is
Yeah.
the basic idea still, being sought to use that northern parcel as a fill, taking fill from that and putting it into the development? Are they still, is that still happening?
Well, they have to, yeah, I mean, they
That's still
they
happening.
definitely have to elevate the development
They have to
pad.
elevate.
They have to get pretty much the entire pad up,
Mhm.
out of floodplain.
Mm.
So, yes, they need a soil borrow site.
One of the big questions for what we're gonna be grappling with is what happens to that 100 acres.
Yes, I
Yeah.
understand, and I was wondering if that was still on the table, because
Mm,
that's a big deal.
well,
Yes.
Because, just as sort of a little pre-discussion, I don't know if that's okay. is it?
No, it's not.
It's not on the agenda.
too bad. You'll have to do-
July, you have to come to the
Next,
July
yeah.
You'll have to do
meeting.
that without me then. I'm curious, but.
Well, you can, so the people, and I was gonna send out, I mean, you can, and I think Ramiro said he can't
Yes.
come, but you guys can potentially, if you want, submit, you can review ahead of time and submit written comments. If you wanna submit written comments, I
Okay.
can include those as part of the discussion, so, just because you're not here doesn't necessarily mean that you can't comment, okay?
Okay.
So you can always do that and submit them in writing.
All right, so I'll get the materials anyhow. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you will. You'll get the materials anyhow. And I was gonna tell that to Romero too,
And I
if he
guess
wants to look at them.
It's just the beginning of the process anyhow, right? There's gonna be, or is that
Well,
a
This is
meeting
gonna be
where,
a major meeting.
it's gonna be the major one where
this might
everything
be
gets
the only
said and
time
done?
that you
Okay,
get
I'm
to
just curious.
comment on the open space
Okay.
and habitat features,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
But wouldn't it go to city council at some point?
Oh, yes, but I mean,
Yeah.
in terms
in
of the
terms of the
commission.
commission, providing input, I mean, of course, you can always
Go
show up
to
at a
council,
planning
yeah.
commission meeting,
Mhm.
on your own and comment,
Yeah.
but I mean, as a
Yeah, yeah.
commission.
Hmm.
And
Okay,
so, yeah. Cool, yeah, so
Okay.
try to make it.
alright,
So
I'll be,
that's what's happening in July. and
That'll
then
be, yeah,
we-
July 16th, and then,
Something in September.
yeah, and, right, and then we won't meet again until, well, so I suppose there is a chance that if July 16th, they're not ready, or it's not ready, I might have to try to do something in August, which
Right.
is a terrible month for everybody. So I don't know, so I will keep you informed about that, and remember too, September is weird because of Labor Day, so we normally don't
Yeah.
meet here, we usually meet at the senior center the
Mhm.
second Monday of the month, and I have to, that's reminding me I have to go reserve that now, because,
okay,
so just keep that in mind, that September is also kind of an off, meeting night. So July and September are gonna be off meeting nights.
So September meeting, second Monday?
yeah,
That's usually what I try to do, yes, second Monday, and it's usually over at the senior center, because I have to go somewhere that has an owl.
not the same house.
And usually this room,
Too bad.
yeah, usually this room is taken,
Can you realize?
so we can't do it here, so. Anyhow,
Okay.
yeah, so that's what I have, I mean, I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do in September
Okay.
yet, so I don't.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
too far
okay,
ahead.
okay, alright,
Okay, with that, I will adjourn until next month.
Okay, great, thanks.
alright.
Thank you.
Thanks for the chocolate. Yeah.
I see you around.
Yeah, see you around.